Hey, Olivier, how's it going?
Super good. How are you?
Good, good.
Yes.
Hi, Olivier.
Hi, Juliana. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too.
So you're in Santo Domingo now.
Uh-huh. Yes.
You're what? You're at like a coffee shop or a restaurant? Where are you?
Yeah, I had to do some stuff in the business district, so I'm here now. Uh, and the place where I used to, or where I thought I'm gonna have to call with you, really bad internet, so I had to move to a
Okay, all
restaurant.
right. Well, we'll
Yeah.
make do. I can hear some noises every once in a while, but it's fine. I think
Okay.
it adds atmosphere of
Nice.
so the DR. Let's talk about the DR. I think you're the first person we've had from the DR.
Cool.
I think, yeah, definitely on the podcast. I've it's probably the place that's Latin American, I guess you would call the DR Latin American, right?
Yeah, sure. Mhm.
Okay. Um, it's the place in Latin America I probably know the least about. My experience, my one experience there was at a resort, and my wife wanted to go to this kind of like all inclusive resort for like a vacation for like years. And I was like, no, we need to, drive around for 6 hours every day and go to like out of the way restaurants for a week. And then at like some point, she was like, yeah, but I just want to relax and I don't want to think about anything. And here's this place on the beach and it looks nice and it wasn't expensive. And I was like, fine, let's just go. And then you can finally see what an all inclusive is. And so we went and stayed at this all-inclusive chain resort. It was in La Romana. Like we flew into Santo Domingo and just like rented a car, went straight to La Romana. And the beach was nice. It was beautiful, but like I hated the kind of all-inclusive atmosphere and like the hotel and like the food was like ridiculous and so I didn't really get to experience anything of the DR at all. And I'd probably experience more of it just like in New York City going to like Dominican restaurants, which
Yeah.
there's a bunch kind of scattered around town, but they're more like cafe. At least the ones I've been to are more like cafeteria style places where you just like scoop out rice and beans and
Hmm.
plantains and something onto a plate and get it to go. It's never something like it's just something that's there. I
Hmm.
guess
Yeah.
at least these ones and
Hmm.
like so that's probably my experience with it. But I know from traveling elsewhere in the Caribbean that the food, the landscapes, the culture of the DR is unbelievably rich, and it seems like
Yes.
it's just always kind of been overlooked.
Hmm. Yeah, I think what you're saying is super accurate. And for a big amount, or most of the time, what's been promoted here is exactly what you experienced. You want to go to the beach, you want to read a book, you don't want to worry about anything. Maybe food and like drinks and the whole hospitality and cultural aspect is not the most important thing on this trip, but you just want to do like nothing and be lazy for a week. That's what's promoted. The beach is beautiful, and that's it. Um, but as you say, there's like Dominican Republic or the island that Dominican Republic shares with Haiti. Has crazy biodiversity. So many like microclimates with the Pico Duarte that is 3,500 meters high, and then you have the biggest hypersaline lake that looks a little bit apocalyptic when you're there, because everything is dry from salt, um, like the trees and everything. And then you have a desert, you have tropical mountains, you have pine forests. So often people that visit me now are surprised when we go to the mountains and they see how the landscape changes. I mean, in other countries they also do, but here I feel it's like you drive 50 kilometers and you go through 5 microclimates. That's um, and for me when I started cooking, it was always like I have no clue about Dominican food, as you say. And there's rice and beans and el sancocho, that is like a soup with different vegetables and meat and chicken inside. But I was like, somehow I cannot imagine that the food landscape is this if there is so many different plants. I did what you said you wanted to do in this on this trip. You know, I came here in 2014 for the first time and stayed here for 3 months with the idea to like work in different restaurants. At this moment in the city, there was not really a restaurant that was working the way I imagined this cuisine here, let's say. And I realized that where I found it most interesting is like the the most remote place of the countryside. And there I got to know, because it's so remote, you still today at some places don't have like internet connection and phone connection. Um, so people there have to live with what the land gives you. And there's where I got to know a lot of interesting um, ingredients and techniques that I feel like have to move. Sorry. Um, but yeah, and also like understanding how this region works. Like I think I was first a little bit like, ah, shit, we have this podcast now, and I have to sit on the street in front of a restaurant, and this car fast drives buying, like selling used things, and somehow all these things that like triggered me a little bit during these trips. I was, ah, shit, it's not as I maybe am used to it from Switzerland, or how my perception is of something that is professional. Um, but like when we started building the restaurant, we were thinking like, okay, we want to have a menu. We want to have like, we want to take this freedom to choose for the guests, which I'm also not so fan of normally, but most of the ingredients we use, guests don't know. Also, locals are not used to the ingredients that we cook with and with the techniques mostly. So we had to choose to like offer what we have, and also because there's so many unpredictable points in the daily life here, we change the menu basically every day. So and we kind of found a way to speak about it, and it's like we think that collaborations and improvisation are like key elements of our restaurant, and I feel like it's key elements to do things the way we want to do it here in the Caribbean, because I mean we're an island. There is a lot of infrastructure that has to be imported, and we want to use only ingredients and things from local farmers and producers, but also all the handcrafts, the plates, the spoons, everything is made locally. Um, but you always have to be ready that things can turn out different. A rain can make that an ingredient doesn't arrive this week, but in 2 weeks. Then you try to get it from 7 different families, and then when the rain stops, all of them send you citrus, like last week, and we get like 7 bags of different citrus, and now we're like drowning in citrus. But it's there we have to be like flexible and learn how to do it. That's why also the size of the restaurant is a little small. But I think I made a little chaos now as well with everything that I talked about.
So, what do you do when you get that much citrus? When you have just like an overwhelming surplus of citrus, and you've already promised to have you promised to everyone that you're going to buy whatever
Yeah,
they send?
sure,
Yeah.
sure. Yeah,
So,
mostly with the people and families that we work with, it's like not huge amounts that they can produce anyways. So with the citrus and with wild mushrooms, we tell the families that we work with, whatever they can sell, we buy it. And if we have too much, then that's our problem a little bit. But we're trying to work also with bars and restaurants here, where we can like give them or like sell them fruits and ingredients that are too much for us, but we also preserve things, um, like salted lemons, etc. Or like mostly we're not using lemons, but like Mandarina Lima, that is an old variety that is not used anymore, or like other different ones. And we preserve them. We use them in many dishes. We do the cocktails with it. We don't have a wine pairing. We don't serve wine, so we only serve cocktails that we do based on sugarcane destillates. How do you say this? Like rum and claret from Haiti. Um, so we just try to use as much as we can, and the rest we kind of um, give it or sell it to other places. And yeah, that's a little bit how we work.
So it's 7 to 10 courses, right? Something like
Yes.
that. Is it?
Hmm.
Okay, and no wine pairing, no wines whatsoever. It's
No, we
all
don't have space for wine.
okay. So it's all distillations. Like, what are these exactly?
Yeah, so we work with, or we try to focus on claret. This is also claret is like rum from Haiti, that is made mostly based on fermented sugarcane juice. Um, but it can also be like sugarcane syrups that you like reduce the sugarcane juice before you ferment it. Um, why we are focusing on this is, first of all, because we want to talk about the political situation between Dominican Republic and Haiti in the restaurant. Because thinking about this geography, the border doesn't make sense, because we need to know what's on the island, and what's produced here. But then there's so many political issues, and also this specific spirit is illegal in Dominican Republic. So we you're not allowed to sell it in Dominican Republic. You're not allowed to import it from Haiti directly, and it's also illegal to produce it here. So the only way we can get this spirit legally to Dominican Republic from Haiti is via a company that they bottle in Italy. So they ship it from Haiti to Italy in 1,000 liter stainless steel tanks. Bottle it there, distribute it via a company in France, and then we buy it either in Switzerland or in New York, and bring it in our suitcase and in all our friends' suitcases, 2 bottles by 2 bottles, to Dominican Republic. That's because then we don't need like to register it as a spirit here, and it's the legal amount you can pass the border.
That's collaboration right there.
Uh,
I was going to ask you about examples of collaboration.
yeah,
There you go.
that's one exactly.
Yeah.
So um, it's crazy to that we have to do this, but also like moonshines in Dominican Republic that are like very dangerous to drink. Often it's like very bad distillations, but also sometimes it's like alcoholes alterados. How do you say it's? Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, they are called claret here too, but that's just a name that in the 60s came up during the dictatorship of Trujillo, and it this this misconception never really got worked or talked about. It's like a taboo topic. So that's why we work a lot with claret as much as we can, because sometimes we don't have so much. Um, and then we work with different rums that are local here, and yeah, like aged rum and white rum, etc. But yeah, that's a little bit what our base is on alcohol, and then the rest we make like macerations with the fruits. Then there's the topic of mama juana, that is kind of spiced rum with different roots, bark of trees, spices, etc. Where we also like make big batches, and we use these things as basis for our drinks.
Mhm. You don't use chickens and eggs, right? Or does it change?
No, we
There
don't
is a
like uh the yeah. Also, this thinking about how it makes sense for us to build a dinner that somehow like reflects what we think about in the Caribbean as a team.
Mhm.
We've had like chicken, pork, meat. Somehow the way it's farmed here often there is farms that work in a really nice way, and you can always find like chicken that are running around happily, but never. I mean, we cook for 18 people per day, and that's already difficult to get it in this amount. But then we felt like we could take the challenge to work without it. So we have to find new ways how to build a dinner without it. And that's why the base of our menu is basically vegan. We don't use any milk products. We don't use eggs. We don't use meat and chicken or like poultry. But we do use seafood because we want to have like a relationship with the sea as an island. And
Yeah.
um, yeah, that's why we took this
And the
decision.
challenge to try to cook without those ingredients, it's because of it's the default diet. I mean, the you want to it's an effort to explore diversity there
Hmm.
and not go to the default uh, consumption habit or
Exactly.
something. Okay.
Hmm. I mean, instead of using gelatines, we can use like seaweeds to thicken
Hmm.
things. We can use starch from guayiga, for example,
Yeah.
to thicken things. Then we use a lot of nuts for to emulsify things, etc. That we would use eggs maybe in another way. Um,
Yeah, I was
and
reading your story about Guayiga, and it's so interesting. It reminds me of cassave in Colombia,
Mhm,
that is
mhm.
made of yuca. It's not the same plant, but the process is very similar. Maybe the texture and the result is different, but I think it's they share some
Mhm.
things. And I
Yeah.
never heard about this plant before. So interesting.
Mhm. And it's used a lot in like landscaping because it's very resistant to like
Mm.
weather. Um, and the difference between cassave or like how you extract the like how the processes of cassave and of the guayiga bread is that when you press um, the yuca or the cassave normally you leave the starchy water, you discard it or you ferment it. I
Mhm.
think this I read from you, Nick, this tucupi or what is it called?
Yeah, tucupi. It's like the extracted juice, and yeah, you can ferment it and boil it, ferment it, and
Hmm.
later reduce it if you want. But yeah, there's a lot of things you can do with it. So
Hmm.
do they do anything with the water? No.
No,
Mm.
but in the case of guayiga, the the whole mass, the fibers of the plant are poisonous, and you only use the starch to make the bread. You kind of cook the starch with water, and then you add fresh ground coconut to it, and it ferments like super fast, gets a little bit fluffy, and
Mm.
um, and then you wrap it in banana, almond, or beach grape leaves, and then you bake it like this.
Mm.
Yeah,
So,
super cool. Like, yeah, it's
Mm.
like it's you never hear about those things from the DR. It's like it sounds amazing, and I'm sure that in the last few years you've been finding all kinds
mhm.
of things like that. Um,
Yeah,
mhm. Go
yeah,
ahead.
it was when we it was like exactly 1 year ago when we had conversations at my place with what's now the team of the restaurant, um, about all these things that we want to have involved in the restaurant, and we made a map and mapped out all um, all the ingredients that we know, we don't get it from any local providers or suppliers. We cannot buy it on the market or in supermarkets. We need to build the logistics. And so when we mapped this out, it was so many things that we got stressed, because it's one is all the ingredients, and one is all the like artisans that build furniture or like tableware for us. And I got anxieties thinking about how to organize all these informations. And then we decided to focus always on 5 topics in the restaurant, and that's the 5 topics that we build. Like, we cook and make drinks, focusing on these 5 topics, but also one day a week the team works on research together, and then we kind of want to build an archive of all these things. So we visit different families that make, for example, guayiga bread, and we invite photographers with us to take pictures, but also the whole team is writing about these experiences when we visit people. And then we have pictures, we have videos sometimes, texts, and then we try to also cook these ingredients in different ways and like archive the recipes. So when we could kind of go through a topic, we want to like learn as much as we can about it, and then move to a next one probably. But yeah, this is a little bit how we're trying to get organized.
And the way you're cooking in the restaurant, it's quite different as well, right? Like the cooking area it's very rustic, right?
Yeah.
It's not like it. I mean, what kind of like modern kitchen equipment do you have, and what don't you have?
So on the countryside, you cook with the most rustic way is like 3 stones and just put a pot on top. And in the 60s as well, an architect designed Lorena. That's like a stove, un fogón, made with lodo and arena, which is like sand and clay. And this is kind of a way how you have the fire inside of your table, and the heat only goes like focused on, more concentrated on 2 spots or 3. And we kind of designed this with a friend. It's not super designy, but we just try to make it like work. And that's basically how we cook. We have this clay stove in the middle of the kitchen, and we cook with coconut charcoal. And then the rest is like, there's a lot of things that is like raw or yeah, not super cooked. We also work a lot with the mortars, but that's it. We basically cook with fire. Then we have 2 inductions that we use for prep when we need to do things, but during the service we only have this stuff.
Okay, and when people come in, I imagine at least so far it's been mostly locals, or is it mixed? Okay.
No, it's mostly locals. Yeah.
Okay. So what has been the reaction?
Yeah. So now is a very funny moment for us, because when we started communicating about the restaurant, for me, it was always, we want to communicate on social media and outside of the restaurant. We want to communicate what we do outside the restaurant. So we want to communicate more about the research we do, the trips, and what we take as inspiration for what we work. And that's like the normal life of Dominican Republic. That's colmados, the small corner supermarkets that we have here everywhere. That's hangouts with friends and families, etc. So, and just random things that you see on the street. So it's not so common here, or it's a little bit disruptive to communicate. I don't want to say it's fancy, but probably it's like expensive, the restaurant. So an expensive restaurant doesn't communicate with pictures of plastic chairs on the beach. And so first it was like, luckily some people already have had dinner at projects of mine, but I think it was very different than other places. But then we also have, you kind of prepay when you book. So when you come to the restaurant, you don't have
like
to.
through talk,
Exactly.
right?
Yeah,
Okay. Yeah.
that was also crazy because we're the only restaurant here that has talk. So we had to convince talk that we can use it here, etc. But so you pay on top, and when you come to the restaurant, you don't need to bring your wallet. Like we cannot upsell. Um, but so people arrive at a certain time, and then we have like 20 minutes with the guests where we receive them in our version of a colmado, which is our dry storage or our pantry, where we talk about everything that we kind of have in the pantry, our research, the menu, explain a little bit why the whole menu is eaten with a spoon and with your hands, and have like also a little bit of time to get to know the guests, and then we and this moment is very important for us and also for the experience with the guests, because otherwise you sit down and maybe you're stressed from your day or anything, and then you sit down and then comes like broth with wild mushrooms and seaweed and roots of herbs. You're like, what is this? But if you have a little bit of context, and we have the chance to like give a little intro, guests are super interested. And every night is very different, because depending on the guests, it can be like a very focused group that really is like hard to read for us sometimes. And then with the desserts, they start like expressing more how, not because of the desserts, but at the desserts, they start expressing more like how many of the things they maybe didn't know. And like often people are really enjoying that we make this whole experience only using local ingredients, farmers, producers. It's, I think the people that dare to come, they're like getting super excited, and we also have a lot of people that already became regulars. Um, and yeah, it's and now we're also starting to do a little bit fun stuff. Like tonight we have a pop-up where we will cook yaniqueque, which is a fried dough that you eat at the beach while you wait for fish. And we cook this at a bar from a friend with some topics and just things that we wouldn't, because we also don't use flour in the restaurant, like wheat flour. But at pop-ups we can expand a little bit and do a little bit different stuff. So
So you have a pretty calm energy for being a chef. I wonder if you have been told this before, and if this is the Swiss element, or it's just your character, or what is it, and how that shows in the kitchen, or if it changed when you're in a working mode.
yeah, it's funny. It's funny that you say this. Well, I think, I mean, I worked in a lot of restaurants that are more, yeah, what you maybe say now, like this different. Let's just leave it at different.
Yeah.
But somehow, I always felt working at places like this that when you're insecure already with what you're working, and then you're also scared uh, that you're scared of making mistakes. I think then you try to hide stuff, no? And for me, it was, or it is important that we have an environment, because I'm working, when we work 4 days a week for service, and then we have one day per week that we do research. and I I mean, I want to do it as good as we can, but just as good as we can. Like we are not a we are not a restaurant with 50 chefs or something like this, and we will never be. Um, and for me, it just doesn't make sense that we don't have a nice time when we're working. But lately, also from the team, we have had like conversations with the team where the team was like, "Fuck, you need to be. Can't you be a little bit more like bossy and like push us more and stuff like this?" And I was like, I mean, we can have conversations about how we can do things different, but if you want to do things like different, then let's just find a way how we can do it different. But I don't think that you need me screaming around and going wild in the space.
Hmm.
And that's a bit, yeah, on sadly it's a little bit maybe unusual, but it's also for me finding the right way of organizing the space, because we still have to perform somehow, but I feel that um, building this energy from fun, curiosity, and like uh, more from an intrinsic way is like much nicer than from fear. So
Yeah.
that's why we have one day per week where we go with the team and we go visit farmers and producers. When we see how the Argentina, which is a lady that she opens the almonds for us, the wild almonds. And when you see that she has a stone and then a hammer, and that's how she opens one by one almond. And we use like easily 1.5 kilos per week. So she's opening a lot of almonds, and like her family is involved, and also from all her neighbors we buy like everything that they open. But when you see how she does it and you get to know her, I think then you have like a different relationship with the product, and also you enjoy these trips. And then these things become, I think, more important uh, for everyone involved. And if you care about what you do, then I think you do it with a different, I don't know, sensibility. And and it was thought like this when we were calculating the restaurant and when we were um, thinking how do we want to work. We said it's gonna be a 5 days week. Often you have 6 days weeks here in Dominican Republic, and from these 5 days, one day is gonna be for research and for like uh, we invite sometimes artists, researchers, friends to have like conversations with us where we sit for 1 hour and we have a conversation with this person talking about how this person works. Um, to learn, or we do foraging trips where we go to the north and go to the beach and pick mushrooms the whole day. Um, but I feel like from there you can build a different understanding, and also then I don't know, then you don't need to. It's exhausting to be in this like. I mean, we have pressure. We are stressed sometimes, obviously, and not everything is um, only love and peace and flowers all the time. But we we try to do things the way it makes sense for us and the way we would like. I never wanted to stay for super long at the restaurant because I felt like, I mean, you don't really have a life around it. And I like to go to nature and to visit producers, etc. So this had to be part of the job for everyone. Yeah, that's a little bit how we want.
So I mean, this kind of oh, sorry. this kind of calm demeanor, I think it helps in particular in what you're doing when just kind of setting up this atmosphere for people to come into the restaurant, and it's going to be a lot of information. And if you're this egotistical dickbag, and like in pushing all this information onto somebody, it's going to be a fucking turnoff, and it's just going to be uncomfortable. But if it's presented in this kind of more relaxed way, and I'm sure it's not quite as relaxed as the way we're talking now, but if it's presented in a way that it feels comfortable to digest, I think it can go a lot further. People are going to have a much better time than when it's just like, you have this kind of debrief for 20 minutes with a little bit of alcohol at the beginning, and they kind of, they get to know you and feel comfortable, rather than you sit down and this plate with 40 things on it comes, and everything has a fucking story, and it's just like you're sitting there and you're just bombarded with facts and information, and like I experience that quite a bit at some restaurants, and it can be overwhelming, I think. And you're probably the first person to do anything remotely like this in the DR, so it's like you have to have some kind of patience, and it has to be this kind of gradual introduction that happens throughout the meal. But I'm sure you can't tell them everything you want to tell them. You have to learn to pace it.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
But also, yeah, I think what's cool is that we can we can give you more if you want more, like information, because everything has something behind it. um, but also with this moment in the beginning where we have like this, where we talk about the research. It's always interesting because guests also get to know each other, and it's like, oh, where are you from, like, or they know each other, and then the table is it's like a I don't know, kitchen counter or something like this. So you also sit next to people that you don't know, and you start having conversations, and then we're on the other side of the table, and we also get to know the guests, and we also have a conversation. So this moment in the beginning also helps a lot to break the ice and make people feel comfortable, and that it's not a school or something like this that you're going
The
to.
test.
Exactly, it's not a test. You're just gonna have a nice time. And talking to a friend here that is working on a luxury hotel project, she was saying to me, like, when I told her about the restaurant, she was asking me, but what kind of restaurant will it be? Will it be a restaurant where I have to sit with my back straight, or can I relax? And I think that's a very good reference to,
Summary of it. Yeah.
yeah, yes.
So you were born and raised in Switzerland, but your parents are Dominican, right?
My mom, my dad is
Okay.
Swiss. Uh-huh.
Okay.
Yeah.
What was your connection to the food growing up? Was there
Uh,
much?
yes, yes. I mean, my mom also worked,
Hmm.
um, but it was very important for her that we eat lunch and dinner together at home. So she would start like 5, 6 in the morning latest, mostly 5, because the stews take a while to cook. And I hated it
Yeah,
because,
but this was like traditional Dominican things, or
yes, often,
okay,
often.
right?
But so for me, this I have this romantic story, but I hated it in the moment because I woke up often when I had to go to school. I woke up with the smell of like garlic, onions, oregano, cilantro, like cooking, and I would wake up and be like, "Fuck, why?" And then my day was already destroyed, and I didn't really like beans. So when it was rice and beans, it was horror for me, anyways. Um, and so I often came late to school because um, I didn't like to eat. So my mom was like, "No, you don't stand up until you finish your plate." And I came late to school because of that. So it was a strange relationship with Dominican food for most of, I mean, my really early childhood. But now I really appreciate it, and I see like, fuck, who does this? Like waking up 5 in the morning to cook fresh stews from scratch to have lunch with your family, and that everyone came home from their jobs to just have lunch 1 hour and then go back to work is something very nice. Yeah, but it's sometimes hard to appreciate it in the moment, I guess.
Were you raised in the French side of Switzerland, or?
In the German side,
Okay.
in Zurich,
Hmm.
yes, and yeah, but I so because I didn't like it so much at this moment, I never really knew much about Dominican food. And then when I started cooking and I mean, traveling in Europe a bit first, people always ask me like, "Where are you from? Like, can you cook something from where you're from?" And I didn't know much, so that's when I was like, "Fuck, but I find things interesting everywhere I go. That I must like there must be things in Dominican Republic, and I love rice and beans and these stews today. Uh, but I was always curious what else exists, and that's a little bit where all this started. Yeah,
So you were working in a lot of restaurants, Switzerland, and in Switzerland, and where else? You traveled around quite a bit, right?
yeah, mostly in Switzerland. Then I went to Spain, also to San Sebastian, and I wanted to work at Arsac, but I I just went there and didn't have space. But then I worked at two different pincho places for a while. Then went back to Zurich. Then I worked in well, it took a year to like travel and work in Latin America, and worked a bit in Argentina, Peru, Colombia, um, and in Mexico mostly, and then also here in Dominican Republic. But it was always a mix between a lady that sells anticuchos in Cusco that I asked her like if I can join her making the sauce with huacatai,
Yeah.
and then I worked one day with her, and then I worked at La Mar for some days, but then I also worked at a normal cevicheria for
Hmm.
some days. So it was always like um, trying to mix up a little bit and get to know different contexts as well.
Okay. And this was what, like maybe like 10 years ago ish,
Yeah,
or a little more.
exactly
Okay.
10 years ago. Yeah.
Okay. So, and then, all these things happening everywhere else in Latin America,
Yeah. And
this kind of all these exciting restaurants opening.
mhm,
And is that when you started to think some about the DR more, or?
yeah, I mean, the trip started 3 months in the DR. Um,
Okay.
and then I went to Argentina and traveled all the way up and cooked in different places. But it the trip ended at Pujol in Mexico City. There it was like this place really shaped me a lot because it's so nice how like design, contemporary art,
Hmm.
and light and music, like everything feels that it makes sense to where you are. And I know that this exists in a lot of places in Europe where I was used to it, but a lot of references in Mexico. I was like, oh, but this also somehow exists in some way in the Caribbean. Um, and then from there, I was like, but something like this could, I mean, not like Pujol, but like you
Mhm.
could work with someone local that makes chairs. And there I was like, okay, it's not only about the ingredients, but it's about like everything. And then I got invited to cook at a gallery in Santo Domingo. And there I connected with the curators that were working at this gallery. And we did trips together. And then during these trips here in Dominican Republic, we would visit a family or a colmado or something. And I would see like, wow, this chocolate is so interesting because they make it in a mortar and I haven't seen this technique. Um, but for someone else, it was like, wow, so interesting that they use two different kind of woods, one for the stick and one for the, and everyone saw something different, that we were looking at the same thing. Then I think that helped me a lot also to connect with other fields. Also, you, Nick, told me one time that like maybe I should get to know people that are interested in similar things, but not necessarily in the same way. No,
Okay,
you remember this
it
conversation?
sounds like great advice. I don't remember saying it. It sounds great.
No, yeah, it was because I was like, I don't know, there's not really books or people that I knew at this moment that are interested in what I'm interested.
Yeah.
Um, and then I was a little bit frustrated, and we had a call, and I was saying like, shit, it's a little bit difficult to connect. Um, and then you were like, yeah, but maybe it's not in gastronomy, maybe it's in music, maybe it's in
Mhm.
art, maybe and there I think I also got to question a lot of things that are normal in gastronomy, and that's why we built the restaurant around improvisation and collaboration. So
Where did you guys meet?
Yeah, it's funny. I was just about to ask that. So I met him in Mexico at Alfonsina, this
uh-huh.
Ah,
restaurant in Oaxaca, and
yeah.
I just met Jorge. Somebody recommended. I was going to Oaxaca for something, and somebody recommended like, oh, Jorge used to work at Pujol, is
Mm.
opening this place with his mother. So, and then I connected with them, and like the place wasn't really even open yet. It was just kind of like they
Mm-hmm.
just like had the idea of a restaurant, and I think a sign was on its way or something.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, you were there with two other friends from Switzerland, two other cooks, and you guys were traveling around, right? Mexico for a little bit, or
Yeah, we were staying at his place for like 3 nights or something like this because yeah, they haven't been. Patrick and Pascal haven't been to Mexico then, and I wanted to do a taco pop up then in Zurich. So we just traveled around and got to
yeah.
know a little bit, and yeah, there we met.
Okay, yeah, and it was like Dia de los Muertos, so it's like
True,
there's
true.
all kinds of fun things like going on around town, and yeah, and then I, you know, that Alfonsina experience was like, for me, it was a really like a wow moment, just because I had never seen anything quite like that done in that way. And I don't just mean like the way they were making traditional recipes, but it was like the approach Jorge had to like precision of these traditional recipes, and like with the moles, and the masa, and like it like totally blew me away, and like I'm still blown away by Jorge and his mother. And every time I talk to them, I still talk to them kind of regularly, and it's like they're amazing people. But like, you knew him from Pujol. What was Jorge like at Pujol? Because he's kind of this quiet figure. You don't really get much out of him. I'm curious what he was like in that setting.
Yeah, mostly he was this white figure. Um, he was in charge of. I mean, his nickname is Moles, so
Yeah.
he was in charge of the moles, but and also of all the sauces basically.
Okay.
And yeah, he was like, if you, he's super like, has a huge heart, and he's such a nice person, and he was like not someone that would be like looking for a conflict anywhere.
Mhm.
But if you, as you say, like, he respects the way things has to be done a lot. So if you would make something that, and you would not roast the tomatoes enough, that they develop this charred flavor, he would take it personal and not get pissed, but he would just be sad and be like, I mean, you don't care about this. And
We are
he would,
broken.
yes, and he would just be sad and ignore you for like a while.
Yeah,
But
I can see that. Yeah, it's like
uh-huh,
he really
um,
feels the cuisine in a way like I've
yeah,
never met anyone else
Right.
yes,
doing it.
and
But like, also from what I understand, like he was Pujol at like 3 in the morning every day,
yeah,
right? And like, so he was like a ghost there. It was like you would knew he was presence was felt, but not
yeah.
everyone always saw him.
He didn't like the service kitchen, so he was only mostly in prep.
Okay.
The I think the first 2 days I was picking herbs as normal stagiaire, and then I asked because I was only there for a month or 1.5, and I asked the head chef. I was like, "Hey, I don't want to do herbs for like a week. Can I do something else?" Then in normal kitchens, you don't maybe ask this, and I don't know, but he was like, "But what do you want to do?" Then he was like, "Yeah, I want to do sauces and the moles and all these things, like mostly everyone, I guess." And instead of having or two helping hands or four helping hands, two people for moles, they just put me with him, and like with that, he had like, let's drown. But we connected, and it was crazy busy, but we kind of did the sauces together, running around like crazy. But then the moles, when we had to do the big mole production of the black mole or something like this, he would be like, "Yeah, you know what? I was, what time do we start tomorrow?" And he's like, 4. And I was like, "For what?" It's like 4 in the morning. And I was like, "But really, 4 in the morning?" And he was like, "Yeah, let's meet up at 4, so we can do all the things before everyone comes, because you need to use the molino, and you need to char all these chilies, and etc. etc." So I get there at 4, but the thing was already almost done. So
So he was there like since 1 or something. Like he
Yeah.
just
I have no clue. Yeah. And I never made it to be there earlier than him, and I really like, came early. But I mean, it's the same at Alfonsina. You feel like they're always cooking.
hmm
Uh, I made it one time to be up when they make the masa, when they mill the masa, and it's like 4 in the morning, but you need
hmm
to cook the corn, and like they cook the corn before, but you need to wash it, and like, yeah. And then when you we went to restaurants in Oaxaca in the city, and when we come back, they're like peeling beans, and damn,
No, yeah, it's just not
yeah.
like the work ethic is just
Mm-hmm.
unreal, and it like
But I think for him, it's more than work ethic. It's just life.
yeah, no, it's the way it should be done. It's
Mm-hmm.
the best way to extract
Mm-hmm.
flavor from these products, and it's the way you have to
Yeah.
do it. It's like
Mm-hmm.
it's incredible.
But then he's
Um,
also really good salsa dancers. He also enjoys going out sometimes. That's nice.
yeah, yeah, I've heard that.
Yeah.
All right.
So,
So what else is going on in the DR? Like, I mean,
Sounds
I
so
know,
institutional. Like
sorry?
they are.
So
I'm so institutional every time I hear the DR.
the
Yeah.
DR, yeah, sorry, like North Korea, yeah, it's
Damn.
the Democratic Republic of
um,
Dominican something.
yeah, it's interesting. I don't know. It's getting easier to travel because of social media and you get to know other stuff. But I think for a very long time it was difficult to. You have like Santo Domingo, which is kind of the business capital
Mhm.
of the Caribbean. I feel, at least, it seems like this. And then you have Punta Cana and La Romana that are like, yeah, read a book and enjoy the nice beach areas. And there is like a lot of restaurants popping up here at the moment that have like crazy investments. But then the supply chain is so difficult. So, um, but I feel like locals, and it seems to me like also it's starting to be a topic that also for, I mean, local development, but also for tourism and also just for the culture as it is. It's important to understand more about food
Yeah,
and everything that has to do with hospitality. Um,
yeah, no, I think it's an important part that
mhm,
just has gotten overlooked for many years. It's
mhm,
part of this this Caribbean trend of
mhm,
giving you know you know fat white Americans what they just like the
mhm.
standard American menu, and in just focusing on that, and nothing nothing
Yeah.
local is needed. You
Mhm.
just don't even pick. I think they do now, and not just the fat white Americans, but everyone traveling. I think is
Uh-huh.
more aware of what they're eating, and
Mhm.
they want to eat experience something local.
Yeah.
And yeah, and like I've seen a few other chefs on the island who
Yeah.
are kind of like making names for themselves. Like I haven't been in any of these places, but like what's her name? Like Chef Tita, I think I follow on
Uh-huh.
Instagram. And it's like
Yeah.
seems to be doing a lot of interesting things,
Uh-huh.
and
Yeah.
there's
She
this.
just
Okay,
went out of her restaurant somehow.
okay,
Announced this like 2 weeks ago. I don't know what happened there. Um,
but
there's
she has a
also
few, right? Or am I wrong?
um,
Okay,
to I'm not so like I
yeah,
don't know exactly because I was
okay,
thinking that she had this restaurant here in Santo Domingo, but then somehow she left the restaurant. The
okay,
restaurant
okay.
still exists, but
All right.
um, yeah, I don't know. I think she, yeah, I don't know exactly so much there, um, but there's also a lot of yeah, there's a lot of chefs and like people that do things here. Um, Sometimes it's very interesting, like mixes of cultures. Then there is a, a small scene of like very small projects. Like there is a friend of mine, Ruth. She has a project where she makes like vegan cheese with local nuts, and she does like misos with local ingredients and ferments like everything. And that's super cool. Then there is some people that do interesting beverages, um, and and we're starting to mix it all up a little bit. So
Mm-hmm.
we also like I think it's nice that we start. I mean, maybe it's me starting to join the conversations, but I feel like there is like conversations going on that try to yeah do things together and use resources from one another. And then there's also like huge restaurants here that have crazy volumes and start implementing like local stuff. That's
Mm-hmm.
also nice. And yeah, I feel like some things are coming together slowly. It's a little bit. I mean, we're good with the local audience, but I think it would be interesting to understand how we how we can uh, make people outside of the city or the country know a little bit about what we're doing. But I think patience and time will tell if yeah. And I feel like there's a lot of people visiting the country, so I feel like that's also something that will become interesting, and yeah, just see how everything develops. I don't know.
Mhm.
But I feel like there's a big interest from from the restaurant community in like working more with local ingredients. But sometimes it's true, it's just a lot more easy to get dried porcinis from somewhere. It's easier than to get wild mushrooms from here. It's true.
Yeah,
But,
yeah, no, but it's.
um,
I mean, it just happens slow. I mean, it's
it's like
the important thing is just to have the conversations, and then little by little,
mm,
I think you just people just start chipping in different ways, and it kind of I think it just kind of snowballs and happens out of nowhere.
yeah,
I mean, at least that's what I've seen kind of over the last 20 years, kind of everywhere in Latin America at this point. It's
yeah,
just
yeah. And I
just
mean,
having
with
those
how the
conversations.
world is at the moment, and it's important that you know what grows in your geography, like what plants can you eat, how why does it make sense to protect the forest as a forest and not like just plant palm trees in straight rows or something like this. I think not only because food is nice and in fashion, but also like the way we consume food makes makes the landscape in nature, but also in trash, like everything that is packed in certain ways and everything. So
Mhm.
um, yeah, I think it's also a bigger conversation than just the restaurants that is important to have on an island. Because, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
All right, man. Julie, any last questions?
No, I don't know, I keep thinking about this approach, calmness and kindness, and how it brings a sense of normality to the industry, to hospitality, and it's refreshing. And I don't know, it makes me think that the dynamic in restaurants can be different, which, I mean, as I admire them and the work that everyone does, because it's really hard work, amazing. It's just crushing to see that the energy has to be hectic and, just stressful and mean. So I think that's yeah, it's kind of a treasure. I don't know, hope it flourishes and expands, and yeah.
let's see.
I got stuck in that calmness.
Nice. Nice.
For good, for a
Yeah,
good thing.
cool.
All right. All
I'll
right.
highlight that. Yeah.
Thanks, man. It's good talking to you. Everyone, check out Casarré. Casarré, right? What does
Casarré.
Casarré mean?
Uh-huh.
Casarré. Casarré.
Yeah.
What does it mean?
Um, Casarré, first it was Casarret, um,
Okay.
which red is like net
Mhm.
in Spanish. And so because we feel like we're just part of a big network of people
Mhm.
and things, um, we wanted to call it Casarre. But then we exactly now it's a good moment to have this explanation because Casarre for an English speaking person would be Casa Red. And then we
Yeah.
would have the question now why the house is not red.
Yeah.
So we kind of wanted to write it the way you would pronounce it as a Dominican person.
Okay.
That would be Casarre.
Okay. And I think isn't there a bank called Casa Red, like Casa Red?
I
Like
don't
I
know.
feel like I've seen one maybe in Peru or somewhere.
Okay,
The
I
like
don't.
ATMs are that say
Oh yeah,
Casa.
because mostly it's here in Dominican Republic. It's una red, um, and that's like the network of all the banks that can use the same
Mm.
ATMs because
Okay,
it's again like the network. So
all
yeah,
right.
that's maybe la red.
I do have a question about the trips you organize. And one
Mhm.
of your posts, it's with a chair and saying like, "We are almost ready. We have been waiting for." So I wonder how that works. You just gather a group and you go from there, or what is the goal and the idea with those exploratory trips?
Um, so one is the we as we as team from Casarré, we go together to just to
Yeah.
understand like where we get things from, etc. But now people start asking if they can join us for trips to
Yeah.
forage or to visit some specific things. Um, and yeah, these trips, the goal of these trips is first to like, I mean, for me, most of these people have become like close friends. So visit them, see how everything is, but also understand better what they do. Also, we try to invite the producers to our restaurant so they understand what we do. Um, but then, yeah, just exchange knowledge. Then sometimes these trips are also to get the ingredients because we have to
Mm.
go and visit them to buy it from them sometimes, um, and document things as well, like document with pictures how they do things and have conversations. Sometimes visiting people, after 4 or 5 visits, you realize that they also do this, um, and just I don't know, staying like in touch with the people.
Yeah. In
For
network.
for other people that visit or join us for these trips now, it's some things for us become like normal, and then somebody visiting is like, wow, that's so interesting, or why haven't you thought about doing this like this? And it's always like interesting to have these conversations. So, and also to not be always in the environment where in the end of the day you have to serve 18 people and a full menu. It's like,
Yeah. Gives perspective too.
huh? Yeah.
Okay, well, it was good speaking with you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
Sounds great. I hope to get there soon. Yeah.
Yes. Yes, please.
This weather would be nice. I'm freezing right now.
Yeah.
I turn off the the heat in my barn where I work when I do these because it's not that loud, but it makes some noise, so I turn it off, and now like I'm freezing.
Ugh,
Yeah.
Ah, shit.
freezing for us.
Yeah.
Yeah. Where are both of you? Are you're upstate New York, Nick, right?
Oh,
I wouldn't
Or
say
no,
upstate,
I
but
don't know.
yeah, north of the city, and
Okay.
Julie's in L.A.
Okay. Ah,
Safe,
okay. Yeah. Good.
safe, thankfully.
safe.
Yeah.
Yeah, we
Okay.
are in opposite sides on that.
Okay. Cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice. But thank you so much for having me. Uh, hope to have you here soon.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank
Thank
you.
you. Thank you.
Have a great day there.
Thank you. All the best.